Hi, everybody. This is Jack Easum with TrumpRepublican.News, TrumpRepublican.News, TrumpRepublican.News. Go to the website. Today, with this show, we have a very, very special guest, Mr. Robert Newman, and he is an incredible person with an incredible level of political background. And Robert, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hi, welcome to the show. I was wondering if you could give us a little bit of your recent history and biography of what you've been up to the last few years.
Yes, I will do that. I'm currently, and I will address this very important issue later in the program. I'm very active in the development of the state of New California. And I am the chair of Riverside County, and I'm a member of the Assembly. Maybe more clarification later on that. I have been, to provide a little bit of recent background, I've been involved in the governmental arena. I do not consider myself a politician because I am not. And there's another term for me. Others have referred to me as a statesman. I have a matter of principle in which I operate by, and that's based on the Bible. Those are enduring principles. Now, this matter of being involved in government and not politics, that people are very confused. I see it that in the beginning we had government, and eventually we had manipulations, deceptions, etc., and that's part of the political activity. It's not necessarily all bad, but it turns out to be that way. Over the course of time, politics has overshadowed governmental involvement. There are, in fact, decent people who get into government who are principally driven and not self-centered. They are very rare. I do know a few of them. For example, in California, there are 40 in the state Senate and 80 in the state Assembly. 5 of them I know up close who are principled people and are fellow believers. That's not a very good percentage. To clarify why people who are grounded in God's Word are so rare in the governmental arena, I'm talking about whether it's city council or board of supervisors, state level or federal level, is because over the years, believers have been indoctrinated to think that to be involved in such a dishonest, self-serving, greedy area, that decent people would not get involved. That's precisely the reason people need to get involved. With respect to why I am involved in this arena, it is not part of my background, not part of my professional training. I'll elaborate on that shortly. But I will say that it was 17 years ago that I received a call from God to be the governor of the state of California. This is very shocking to most people, even those who knew me and still know me, even from childhood. And it has been a quest since that time. The first election when in California, Gray Davis was recalled. That was a historic event. I was a candidate for governor at that point in time and have been up to the present election, which I lost in the June primary this year. I will be a candidate for governor again in 2022. The preparation does not end. The call did not end. Therefore, I continue doing what I am doing. Now, in this regard, I'm active in many different areas that are impacted by governmental decisions. And one of them, and close to my heart, is sanctity of life. That is, from the womb to natural death, these individuals, living people, are valued by God And even though those reaching the end of their lives, it's of little, they may not be able to return to normalcy in terms of activity, but to care for them, to be next to them, touches our hearts to be better, more compassionate human beings. So I'm very involved in the pro-life movement. I'm very active currently still in the legal immigration activity. I have been for a goodly period of time involved with We the People Rising. I've testified before many city councils, boards of supervisors here in California, police departments, sheriff's departments, etc., to educate them about the real issue about the negative impact of illegal immigration. We are a country of law and order, and as you know from the U.S. Constitution, the sixth article indicates that we are that it's a supremacy clause, paragraph 2. The supreme law of the land is the federal government. Okay, that is being violated in California. California is seriously jeopardizing itself by the action of our executive branch as well as legislative and judicial branch. Now, so I'm very involved in legal immigration and in the movement here in California from the border to Sacramento. I've spoken in many of these different venues. I'm very involved with the Remembrance Project, which is nationwide, home based in Washington, D.C., and it's because of my involvement with the Remembrance Project that I was actively involved behind stage, side stage, and on stage with President Trump when he was a candidate. And in fact, really? one time when I was, yes, thank you, Jack, that I don't mean to dominate the show.
Go ahead, you're doing great. You're doing great.
Thank
Go
you.
Ahead.
Thank you. When he spoke in Houston, Texas, to the Remembrance Project, I'll explain that in just a second. When he left stage, I was the only person that he went over to, about a crowd of 300. He went directly over to me. He recognized me. He shook my hand. I indicated to him that we were praying for him, and he had to come through 2 lines of security to get to me because he had already won the primary. So that was, and then I was driving an automobile, a white automobile with big black letters on the top, across the trunk, across the hood, on both sides. Trump. I live on a farm in the country. I have an 8-foot square sign that says, God's gift to America, Trump. And so that people stopped. The people stopped to say to speak to me. Okay, and say they're grateful to see that sign. I'm also involved with We the People Rising, which deals with illegal immigration, getting the illegals off commissions and boards because they're not U.S. citizens. That's another activity in which I'm involved.
Sure.
There are a few others, such as America First Latinos, and in that group, we emphasize that Latinos are first Americans, and after that, they're from their country of origin, wherever that might be. So I'm very active in that arena as well. Here's another extremely important activity in which I am involved, very entrenched, and that is the Center for Self-Governance. Center for Self-Governance. And this is a group and I'm on 2 conference calls from 6 a.m. to 7 each week, and then we have face-to-face meetings regularly in Riverside County, but it's a nationwide group, and we are concerned about maintenance of the system. Maintenance of the system, and the best way to look at that is an airplane. People take care of the airplane so it will fly. We take care of the structure of government and emphasizing that we are a Republican form of government. In order to be in the Union, we have to have a Republican form of government. It's in our Pledge of Allegiance, etc. We are not a democracy. People do not understand that. We are a republic. And so we can change pilots, Democrat, Republican, etc. That doesn't change the system in terms of maintenance. It can change the system, but it doesn't maintain the system. Sadly enough, it's supposed to. And we can change the crew, and we can change the passengers, but unless we maintain the system, the structure established by the Founding Fathers in the U.S. Constitution, the divisions of the various categories of something that United Nations Agenda 21 is trying to merge and blur. No. Regional government is doing the same thing. No regional government. There are cities, there are counties, there are states, and there's the federal government. And also the schools are involved at the very lowest level. That was introduced. That will remain. There's really not much we can do about that. But those are the kinds of things in which I involve myself. Now, because of the nature of this program, yes, I am a Republican by party of affiliation. I am a conservative. I am fiscally conservative. I am socially conservative. And that has to do with the maintenance of our republic as well. So, yes, if any of you are concerned, I do identify with the Republican Party. I do not have elephants in my veins. I do not have elephants in my veins, but I am a very conservative and sensible individual. And that has to do with family issues, that has to do with social issues, political, spiritual issues. Okay, Jack, I've gone on for quite a while. Please share with me, brother, what I need to make sure I cover.
Well, you covered a great deal, and one thing I wanted to kind of jump on, I know that you met with President Trump, and your impression of him at the time, I know it was during the campaign, and it was probably not too long a visit, but what was your impression of him as a person?
Well, my impression was that he is a type A personality, that he is a go-getter, that he means what he says, and he says what he means, and that's the kind of leader we need. We do not have leadership in this country from the lowest levels to the highest levels because people will not stand on their principles and take the flack that they might receive. But my position is, if they are clear in their position, in their heart, in their head, and they know what they stand for, and it's the principles of this country, founded on godly principles, if they stand on those principles, as our president does, as actually he was, I think, learning to do, that my impression was positive. Now, my wife was not so convinced about our current president when he was a candidate for presidency. And so she read his book, The Art of the Deal. And that convinced her about who this man is and where he stands and where he will and has demonstrated he will stand as the leader of this country. We need leadership in this country. We don't need those who go along to get along. That's way too expensive to this country, and is not healthy as a role model. So I want to emphasize the issue, being a research clinical psychologist, and I'll share a little bit about my background and how I got to that place as a research clinical psychologist. But we need to know where we stand on various matters and demonstrate that to those who observe us, whether it's governor of the state of California or the mayor of a city or the president of the country. We need to demonstrate leadership, and that's what Donald J. Trump is doing right now, and some people are not pleased with that.
But he's taking a lot of flack, from people. A lot of hassle he's taking from a lot of people for being a leader. I agree with you on that.
That's right. But they're so used to milquetoast, feminized, in quotes, leaders, that they're not used to someone such as himself. Now, in corporations, they are. The CEO, he is the big man or woman and makes the decision and stands by the decision. We don't want wishy-washy, undependable sort of people. Now, I need to tell you a little bit about my academic background. I actually planned to go to medical school back in the late 60s and actually did not get in. Now, there's an explanation to that, and that it has to do with affirmative action. Came into play at that time. And those who are in the same classes as myself, in chemistry, biology, zoology, physics, did not do academically as well as I did. I'm not patting myself on the back. I know this to be true. And they didn't score anywhere near as high as I did on the MCAT, the Medical College Aptitude Exam. They didn't, but they got in because of government. Government meddles and interferes with our lives all the time. But that was a God thing. I'm glad that I'm not a physician today because it's dominated by big pharma and the insurance industry. But I have degrees in chemistry, mainly organic chemistry was at my emphasis, and in zoology. And in zoology, I actually emphasized cell biology. That was where I was. That was my emphasis. It still is. But then I I continued and got a master's degree in theoretical and experimental psychology, and then a doctorate in research clinical psychology. So in terms of activity, I published a number of papers in peer-reviewed journals, for which I received requests for reprints from all around the globe in 3 different languages. Each letter would come in 3 languages. Now, and I'm still doing some of that currently, and maybe I'll get to that at this time. I do not know. But then I taught at the university level at various universities and community colleges. My heart is closest to community college. An absolutely superb education can be acquired in California at the community college level. And so I'm emphatic about the community college. And I went into private practice to pay the bills. That's very important, to pay the bills. And so I was in private practice for a goodly number of years before retiring. But currently I'm still doing empirical research, acquiring data on the alien trauma syndrome. the alien trauma syndrome is what happens when an individual in a family is murdered by an illegal alien that the government is allowed in this country and protected in this country. We're doing something about that. New California is in our grievances that we read. We grieve our current government and governor in California, and we list these various issues that are very troublesome, like in the Declaration of Independence, the grievances against King George. We are doing exactly the same thing, 40 weeks here in California. My wife and I read that grievance at the courthouse in downtown Riverside, California, at 11 o'clock each Tuesday, unless someone else who's part of the team reads that, as was done today. So we... I am doing some research currently for the Remembrance Project, and have spoken on this issue to various groups because the families who have lost a loved one to an illegal alien are grieving, and they're angry for the most part because the government has allowed this person to be in the country who killed their loved one, and they really have nowhere to go to express themselves to get, how can one get compensation for the murder of a loved one? But I deal with these families and interview these families who have lost a loved one to understand their psyche so that treatment can be delivered to them if they seek treatment. Not all of them seek treatment, and there's an individualized reaction to a loss as well. So that's part of what I'm doing right now. Now,
let me ask you.
We are doing it. So I'm very pleased that how this program has been handled and my opportunity to share. Okay, Jack, go ahead and.
Robert.
Take over.
Yeah. Well, Robert, I just thank you so much for sharing so much information. It's been a power-packed show that we've got today with your Trump meeting, clinical psychologist that was there to kind of evaluate Trump in terms of who you thought he was in the short time frame you saw him, and all the information relating to New California State and how that's progressing. And, I think Donald Trump may have helped to inspire the New California State. He seems to be inspiring a lot of things around the world because of his leadership. And so I give him some credit for making people think about doing those kinds of things. And as a Trump Republican, and when I say Trump, I mean President Trump. When I say Republican, I'm talking about the Republican form of government, where we have the Republic. And so I just really appreciate our time has gone so quickly. I was just quite enthralled by the way of how you were covering it. What would be the best way for people to contact you, to get a hold of you and find out about your fine work that you're doing?
Well, thank you. My website, or how about my email? That's probably best. Is Newman4Governor@AOL.com, and Newman is Newman, and it's the number 4. It's Newman4Governor@AOL.com, and certainly if there are some questions about the development of the state of New California, and I can answer those questions, I will do that. If I need to, or if it's appropriate for me to redirect the question, I will do that. And I would welcome your inquiry and participation. If you're in California, even if you're in one of those counties that essentially, I want to be honest, are not invited into New California because they are generating the real problem, not the solution. And wherever you might live in California or in the in the country, I will certainly respond to an inquiry. But if you want to participate, please go on the website, newcaliforniastate.com, to get some questions answered, and then inquire as you would choose. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Robert, for being with us today. And we just appreciate you so much, all your good work. And I want to remind all the listeners out there, like President Trump likes to say, keep moving forward. Never, ever give up. God bless everybody.